all President Trump does is win, win, win. It was a weekend of winning for the president-elect, and it started off in New York City, where he was the guest of honor at the UFC fight at Madison Square Garden. And not only was he the guest of honor, not only did the crowd erupt with applause and glee and happiness and joy when he walked into the arena, but champion John Bones Jones not only thanked President Trump after his monumental win, but then climbed outside of the cage, did the Donald Trump rally dance, and handed President Trump his UFC title belt, which President Trump was very excited to see. He also traveled there with his cabinet: Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Speaker of the House Mike Johnson tagged along. And in fact, on Trump Force One on the way, there was a very iconic photo taken of the president, of Elon Musk, of Donald Trump Jr., the Speaker of the House, and RFK Jr., all sitting down eating some McDonald's. We don't know if future Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. actually ate the McDonald's, but he was photographed with it, and he does look a little uncomfortable. Now, it wasn't just all fun and games this weekend. President Trump was working. President Trump and his transition team are always working. In fact, the transition is going very quickly. It's moving, I think, faster than most transitions I've ever seen. The team works around the clock at Mar-a-Lago. They sit around a big table. They talk about what openings there still are, and then they come up with names and candidates. They debate those names and candidates. They interview the names and the candidates, and then they make their decisions. And the decisions, depending on who you ask, and we'll show you how the media is trying to propagandize Donald Trump's cabinet picks here in just a minute. But depending on who you ask, they all seem to be fairly straightforward, pretty gosh darn good, and the kind of warriors, the kind of conservative, pro-America, MAGA warriors that Donald Trump promised he would fill his cabinet with. These are the kind of people that will get President Trump's agenda done. And it should be no surprise that the media, who's not a fan of President Trump's agenda, would not be a fan of his picks either. But one of the most exciting was that President Trump announced Chris Wright will be joining the administration as the United States Secretary of Energy and a member of the newly formed Council of National Energy. This was the same council that Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, who's just been nominated to be the Secretary of the Interior, was also added to. So President Trump is making sure that his cabinet secretaries that are in charge of energy, in charge of drilling, drill baby drill, in charge of getting us back to a state where we are a country that is self-reliant, that can fuel its own industry. He wants us to get back to a place where we are a net exporter of our energy, not just that we have ample supply for ourselves, but we have an excess that we can sell to our allies. And by selling to our allies, they will not be forced to buy from our enemies. And that's just common sense, which has been lacking in the current administration. Here's what President Trump wrote on Truth Social about Chris Wright. Chris has been a leading technologist and entrepreneur in energy. He has worked in nuclear, solar, geothermal, and oil and gas. Most significantly, Chris was one of the pioneers who helped launch the American shale revolution that fueled American energy independence and transformed the global energy markets and geopolitics. The Council of National Energy will consist of all departments and agencies involved in the permitting, production, generation, distribution, regulation, transportation, and all forms of American energy. The council will oversee the path to U.S. energy dominance by cutting red tape, enhancing private sector investments, and so on and so forth. Now, the interesting thing about Chris Wright is that he owns a fracking company, Liberty Oil. And this is a fracking company, which, and you understand, fracking was a mainstay of all, really, I would say the last three presidential contests. Fracking was a big point of contention in President Trump's first contest in 2016. Then again in 2020, it was the infamous moment where Kamala Harris flip-flopped on fracking. She went from "we will never frack, we will ban fracking" to "I'm all about fracking" when she realized Pennsylvania's a state that anybody who wants to be president needs to win. Well, this is a guy, Chris Wright, who's a fracking expert. This guy built a company to successfully frack in the United States of America. And now he's been placed in charge of energy. So that should give you an idea, really, of President Trump's priorities when it comes to making American energy great again. Not only that, but he's a pioneer in nuclear energy. And nuclear energy has been one of those that has, I think the fear mongering around nuclear energy has really put it on the back burner when it should be on the forefront. And there's a lot of proponents of nuclear energy in President Trump's cabinet. President Trump himself, Chris Wright, Elon Musk, among others. So it'll be really interesting to see the immediate effects on gas prices, fuel prices, oil prices, the immediate effects on pipeline construction, the immediate effects on drilling and permits and refineries. This is an exciting time for the United States of America, not just because Donald Trump is putting together a candidate that seems like, or a cabinet rather, that seems like they know what they're doing. They're going to secure the border. This appointment shows that Donald Trump is definitely delivering on his two big campaign promises. He said on day one, he will shut down the border and he will drill, baby, drill. And he's putting together teams to do both of that. When he announced that border czar Tom Homan and the Secretary of Homeland Security and Kristi Noem were cabinet choices of his, we know that those two will work together to shut down the border and begin the mass deportation process. When he announced Doug Burgum from North Dakota and now Chris Wright, we know that that's a team that's going to work together to drill, baby, drill and bring back our energy dominance. So that's a very exciting pick. President Trump also expanded his inner circle in the White House. And the inner circle in the White House is shaping up, to me, as no surprise, as no shock, because these are a lot of the loyalists he had on his campaign, the hardworking people who put together the president's campaign message, his historic campaign message. This was a campaign, again, for a Republican nominee that defied all odds and broke all records. The popular vote, the electoral vote, the amount of joy and excitement that we see permeating the country, the way that Donald Trump was able to work this new media empire of podcasts and live streams to kind of bypass the old school way of campaigning. And again, win, win, win. And these are the people that helped put him together. We saw Caroline Leavitt on Friday, which we announced on our weekend program, was named press secretary. No surprise there. She was an amazing campaign press secretary and definitely delivered for President Trump and is good at delivering his message, being his spokesperson, and of course has shown loyalty not just to President Trump, but to the United States of America and the agenda to make that great. Two other names on that list are Stephen Chung. President Trump released this statement. Stephen Chung will return to the White House as assistant to the president and director of communications. Chung was director of communications on the Trump-Vance 2024 presidential campaign and previously served in the Trump White House as director of strategic response. Anyone who followed the campaign closely, and by that I mean you were on X following the post, you got the official press releases, any text messages from the Trump campaign, you know that Stephen Chung was the one who crafted and delivered most of those messages. Whenever there was some lie or whenever there was some bastardization of President Trump and his record and his agenda and his ideas in the media, it was Stephen Chung who fired off a release. Whether it was the 60 Minutes interview, whether it was post-debate with Kamala Harris, whether it was post-debate with Joe Biden, Stephen Chung's name was at the forefront because he was the one communicating with the world the truth, the accuracy about what President Trump was doing, and he was beating back the lies and the propaganda. Did a great job of it too, and now he's been rewarded. He'll continue that job, which is important, necessary, and I think crucial. Communications is getting the message right, being able to, I guess there's two parts of this that are really exciting. The first part is that he will be getting the message out there, the message that Donald Trump wants to convey, and he'll be doing it quickly because time is of the essence. And being part of when he served in the White House as director of strategic response, that's a group of individuals who know how to respond, where to respond, when to respond, and they do it very quickly. President Trump has had an amazing Twitter response or X response. He's had an amazing media response in press releases. And I think that's going to continue through the next 4 years, which is very important because, as I said before, the attacks on him and his campaign and his cabinet are already starting. And we'll get into some of those here in just a minute. Also, Sergio Gore will serve as assistant to the president and director of the Presidential Personnel Office. Previously, Gore was CEO of Winning Team Publishing while also running the pro-Trump super PAC Right for America. President Trump says Stephen Chung and Sergio Gore have been trusted advisors since my first presidential campaign in 2016 and have continued to champion America First principles throughout my first term all the way to our historic victory in 2024. I am thrilled to have them join my White House as we make America great again. And it's really interesting because not only is President Trump and his transition team, they're working on building the dream team, the cabinet that will hopefully just blow right through Senate confirmation without any problems, although we don't foresee that to be foresee that to be the way forward. And then he's building up his inner circle of executive branch members. And these are the people day to day that are going to go in and help him do what he needs to do. Whether it's Susan Wiles, the chief of staff, whether it's Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, whether it's now Stephen Chung and Sergio Gore. You throw on there Mike Waltz, a congressman from Florida's 6th District, who's going to be the national security advisor. Throw in there Tulsi Gabbard, who's the director of national intelligence. All these people who are going to be working in his executive branch to help him make the right decisions, put forth the right executive orders, and then get that message out to the public. So that's very exciting. And then, of course, this one I thought was kind of interesting, too. He was pleased to announce that Commissioner Brendan Carr will be chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. Commissioner Carr is one of 2 Republicans who sit on the FCC right now. President Trump appointed him in 2017, and he's been confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate 3 times. President Trump will now be placing him as chairman of the FCC. And that's an important role in a Trump administration because Donald Trump has had, again, an aggressive relationship with the media. And the media has feared Donald Trump's retribution, as they like to say. Donald Trump just calls it, making changes to government agencies that need them. And they do need change because there's an onslaught of negativity already. There's an onslaught of negativity already in the media toward President Trump and his cabinet. One of the things that we saw over the weekend was a 60 Minutes clip where I don't know if it was an intro or if they were trying to tell a story or what, but here's Scott Pelley, and I'm going to play you this clip. You can see how there is already a concerted effort in the media to attack President Trump's cabinet picks. And this is important. President Trump was chosen by a vast majority of Americans. Attacking him does the media no good. So now they're going to his second tier and they're attacking them one by one. And there was another attack on RFK Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary from the New York Times, which immediately the spotlight was shone down on it. In fact, I saw Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt mention it, but so many others pointed out the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness of this statement. I'll read it to you. This is direct from the New York Times. Mr. Kennedy has singled out Fruit Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the U.S. version. But he was wrong. The ingredient list is roughly the same, although Canada's has natural colorings made from blueberries and carrots, while the U.S. product contains red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxytoluene, a BHT, a lab-made chemical that is used for freshness, according to the ingredient label. It seems like while they're accusing Mr. Kennedy of making false claims about a cereal, including substances that nobody has any business eating, while there's a substitute right over the border, which is much healthier, that the New York Times is actually proving his point. They're so desperate to attack President Trump. They're so desperate to attack President Trump's cabinet that they're willing to make themselves look even more ridiculous than they usually do. As far as 60 Minutes, keep in mind, they are currently involved in litigation with President Trump over their edited version of the interview with Kamala Harris. So I imagine while that litigation continues and while President Trump seeks legal action against any at all news organizations that he believes have been making in-kind donations to Democrats and have been unfairly treating him and have been manipulating and twisting the truth in this presidential election, I would imagine those negative attacks will continue to come. One quick update about a brand new department that President Trump has created with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy at the helm. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, seems to be moving along fairly quickly. In fact, Vivek Ramaswamy was on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, and he was discussing exactly how quickly the Department of Government Efficiency is going to work to cut out the government fat, bring down the size of government, and reduce the redundancy that is costing American taxpayers millions.
So first is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state. That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over the last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress.
Yeah. So Vivek Ramaswamy already putting forward a plan on day one for President Trump using executive action to bring down the size of the government. But that was just the beginning. There was a question from Maria Bartiromo to Vivek Ramaswamy, the new co-captain of DOGE, about entire agencies being disrupted or deleted. And here's what he said.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So, yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, I think, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
And there he goes. He says, we've got the tools, we've got the means necessary, we've got the legal backdrop, we've got the backing of the courts, we've got the mandate from the American people, and there is a lot of government bloat. There's a lot of this redundancy. There's a lot of people who just flat out are not doing the jobs that they were hired to do, and those reductions need to come. If it's an entire agency, that agency will be deleted. And I imagine that the Department of Education is right up there at the tip top because, again, education for a lot of people is a state issue. And much like elections, much like other laws and services that the states provide, education should be provided on the state level. That's something President Trump has talked about at length in various different campaigns, and it's something that I know that he truly believes. The other question that came up was about moving in agencies out of Washington, D.C., which is another great way to reduce the size of government.
Many of these agencies should be downsized wherever they are. And for whatever does remain, move many of them out to be where they're more accountable to the people. And by the way, if you have many voluntary reductions in force of the workforce in the federal government along the way, great. That's a good side effect of those policies as well. And so our goal is not to be cruel, by the way, to the individual federal employees. Most of them, I do want to say this, are individually good people, and we want to be compassionate and generous in how we handle this transition. But the real issue is there's just too many of them. We don't need 4 million, and we shouldn't have 4 million civil servants who can't be elected, or aren't even elected or can't be removed from their positions. It's anti-democratic.
So the Department of Government Efficiency is moving very quickly. President Trump put these people in place very early on. They're getting to work right away. They're hiring, and they are, most importantly, looking through the budget. They're looking at all the agencies. They're looking at those 4 million workers, and they're saying which ones are necessary to the execution of our plan, which ones are redundant and unnecessary, and who might be better suited off working in the private sector. And that's going to happen on day one. The executive orders will be ready. This is so exciting. President Trump is still 2 months away from taking that oath of office. He's still 2 months away from placing his hand down on the Bible and swearing his oath and returning to the White House. But when he does, on day one, there will be executive actions for the border, for energy, to reduce the size of government. It will be a day one flurry of action by President-elect Donald Trump, then President Trump, to make America great again. And if you think we've started winning yet, you haven't seen anything. The winning has just begun. We have more stories and more commentary and all this, a bunch of other great stuff to get into. If you would like to hear additional information about stories, not just about President Donald Trump and his White House and his transition team, but our commentary on everything going on every single day, please download and listen to our second podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. That podcast is available everywhere you can download a podcast. It's live at noon on YouTube and Rumble. And like I said, you can download it anywhere to hear more great information about the stories and the information and the people who are going to make America great again. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download it and enjoy.